Welcome to Cloud Dialogues. I feel like I have the weirdest tone when I say that.
You say it so well, Georgia. You say it so well.
Oh, thank you. I try.
You've been
I definitely
practicing that for the last
I've got
week.
a face for radio, a face for podcasts. Yeah, welcome to everybody to episode 5. So today, on this episode, Matt has just arrived back from reInvent. So he's in recovery, but also we thought we would take a little bit of recovery. Yeah, I mean, you haven't got COVID yet, so that's a good sign.
Yes, other people have.
I mean, you're in quarantine at home, which I think is reasonable, but you haven't come down with it yet.
No,
I got it at Summit last year. I think, unfortunately, the statistics aren't good. But anyway, so obviously you've just gotten back from Summit, which is from reInvent, which is like one of the biggest, I guess it's really the cloud event of the year, right? Like there's not really anything else that happens that's as exciting as reInvent. And such a marathon as well, because it's over basically 5 days, right?
Yeah, 5 days,
in Vegas.
55,000 people.
55,000 people over 5 days in Vegas. Yeah, it's no wonder everybody gets COVID. So we thought we would take the opportunity today in this episode to just recap all of the announcements at reInvent and why they're important to executives. And then as well as that, just to mention as well that obviously it's now December and this will be us done for the year. We'll be taking a little break after this episode goes live, which is really exciting because it's been quite a big year, and I think we're looking forward to having a bit of downtime. But obviously, we would love to hear from all of you as to the different things that you want to hear about next year. In terms of January, one exciting thing that we already have teed up is one of the certified FinOps professionals is going to come and talk with us, which is really exciting. I think, financial management of cloud is something that's always challenging for organizations as they move to cloud, and it requires a lot of expertise and knowledge to manage that effectively in order to make sure that the value is really realized and costs are really kept under control. So that's going to be really exciting. But obviously, if you do have other thoughts about things that you would like to hear about, I would love to hear them. Just because I'm having break over Christmas doesn't mean I don't need more ideas. Just don't be shocked if I take a few days to respond to you.
Okay. reInvent. Yes, I'm back from reInvent after 15 hours on a plane. So, yes, that was fun.
You did very well. Well done.
Thank you.
It's a struggle.
It is a struggle. I had a nap when I got back and then decent enough sleep, so that's good. So I arrived in Las Vegas on the Sunday, and even on the Sunday, you could feel the buzz, all the people, so many people walking around. And the idea is you pick up your badge, pick up your swag, and then you see all the people who arrived. Some people arrive on the Sunday, some people arrive on the Monday, and then you just, catch up with whoever's around. Sunday, I was probably still a bit wiped out from the flight, so I probably did a bit more napping than socialising on the Sunday. Apart from a little food in the evening with some people, and then Monday is the kickoff day. So we usually say the structure of the week is that there's a whole lot of breakout sessions which are all recorded. Usually a lot of people don't worry too much about those, and then there's a lot of chalk talks and other workshop type sessions. Monday evening is the first keynote, Peter DeSantis, where a bunch of serverless announcements came out, which were fairly interesting. Although, when Amazon release a service that says serverless in the name, you've got to really look into it and see if it's really serverless. Unfortunately, the Elastic Cache announcement, the announcement isn't really fully serverless, but hey, that's okay. It's still managed. So that's good. Elastic Cache is a caching service to enable, putting your data closer to your compute, so you don't have to keep going to the database to get the information you need. So an improvement on Elastic Cache is welcome. And then there was some other stuff around Aurora serverless, which was making the existing Aurora serverless database a little bit more serverless by managing the whole scaling up and down. So that's called Aurora Limitless Database. So that was really the announcements on the Monday evening. It was pretty light on. And then Tuesday...
Matt,
yes.
Stopping on Elasticache.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that there are two reasons why that's important, and one is cost and one is latency, right?
Yes, that is correct. So, so a lot of the time, if your application has to go all the way to the back end and get some information and pull it back to the front end, and if that data is static, a lot of the time, then allowing it to cache that all the way through, cache that closer to the compute without having to go back to the database to get that information makes things a lot faster at the front end. So the announcement's about making that whole system easy to deploy, and you don't have to worry about the sizing and all that sort of stuff. So it's about just deploying it serverlessly and letting it deal with scaling and everything. Previously, the cloud engineer or app dev or someone had to scale that for them.
And how come it's not completely serverless, Matt? Like, what is the...
Oh, that still charges you if you're not using it. So serverless, for a lot of people...
Oh, okay,
It might be a smaller fee, but there's a lot of things around that. In theory, serverless should really scale to zero and pay, close to zero, maybe not zero.
Should
but,
be as per, like, event, right?
Exactly right, yeah. But usually AWS improve on these things over time. So let's see. So that was the Monday evening, and then Tuesday was Adam Selipsky's keynote. That's a big one. I went to that one. He did a bunch of announcements. I won't go through them all here because we'll go through them in a sec after I go through the week. But it's obviously Gen AI was a big thing. And a bunch of other sort of some new chips were announced and some zero ETL integrations. So yeah, that's basically Gen AI was one of the main themes of the week. So it featured heavily within Adam's keynote. Going to a keynote at reInvent is really an experience because at the beginning of that keynote it was. There's I think it was an Australian rock band actually, doing covers of popular songs. And yes, it's a bit loud at 8 o'clock in the morning, but or 7:30 in the morning.
I wouldn't be able to deal with that. I feel like I wouldn't be able to do that. I feel like though, like didn't Microsoft have like Jason Derulo one year? Like I feel like
maybe.
There's a couple of different standards here. Like
yeah, it's a bit like that.
Times are tough, man.
And I didn't even have my coffee that day, so I was really
That's
itching
horrific.
for that at
I
the
don't
end.
know how you did it.
I know, I don't know either, but
I can't do anything without coffee.
I was lucky enough to. They did screw up some of the. Some of us had fast passes to be able to go to the front, but it appears I turned up at the right time because I got my seat, but a lot of people were turned away, and I think the people doing the seating had some. Let's say
strange instructions,
process issues, and the wrong people were filling the priority seats. But they fixed that for the rest of the week. After that, day 3 was Swami's keynote. I didn't go to that one. I'd been out the previous night, so I caught some of the Swamis from the room. Swami does a lot of data announcements. Again, much a Gen AI focus there. Improvements around Bedrock and a whole bunch of other things. And then day 4 was Werner's keynote. I did attend that. That's probably the other most heavily attended keynote. Where
I feel like Werner is like a celebrity.
Yeah,
almost.
yeah. And again,
at least in the tech world.
Exactly. And that one also had loud music, but it was more classical music for popular songs. So
I feel like that would suit Werner.
Yeah, I think from memory,
Like his persona.
from memory, I think that happened last year too. And he talked about, he didn't have any huge big announcements actually, but he did talk about one of the themes of the week around costs and cost in the context of architecture, about building your architecture and thinking about cost for every piece of it. And he unveiled a website called thefrugalarchitect.com. I'll make sure the link is in the notes.
Again, FinOps, I think, and especially as organizations become more mature, I think they find that costs start blowing out and they start to panic.
Yeah.
And that's why it needs to be a day one thing, right? Like cost optimization and management needs to be a day one thing. It can't be something that happens because I think in a lot of organizations, good practice happens years down the line, and that's concerning.
Exactly. And because he, law at the frugalarchitect.com, I won't go through all of them, but one of the laws, the first law is making cost a non-functional requirement. So making it a key part of everything that when you're making decisions, making cost front and center of building out your architecture.
I mean, if security is job zero, then cost is job one.
Pretty much.
Right?
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good way of saying it. The other thing he said is every engineering decision is a buying decision. That's one of his sayings.
It's all a trade-off, right?
Exactly. So that's super important. That. Yeah.
I'm excited for FinOps.
That's right. FinOps. Yeah, that'd be nice to have a FinOps episode coming up. So that'll be good.
It's coming.
It's coming. And I guess last year's Werner keynote was also last year you talked about serverless a lot. Again, doing serverless means you have low cost. So the theme sort of, last year he had a lot of announcements as well, but this year it was more about just reminding people about, thinking about all these different things and how they price certain services to deal with, certain you got to price it accordingly because that's how people are going to use the service as well. So you've got to take into account, people doing things that maybe you don't intend, like, downloading a whole heap of files out of S3, but you have a fixed price for S3 downloads and just the decisions they've made around those sorts of things. So it's actually a very good keynote to watch. We'll put the links in the show notes. So that's kind of the week. And then day 5 is a kind of a recovery. There's really only half a day of stuff. A recovery day, so it was like breakfasts and lunches and catch up with people and a nap in the afternoon, and then I caught up with friends for pizza in the evening. So it was, and then obviously there's parties in and out during the week in the evenings, parties / social events. It's basically anyone that you communicate with online. There'll be people there that or in communities that and it's a good way to catch up with people. So it was a good week. So that's kind of my summary. Took a bit longer than I expected there, but hey, that's okay.
I did stop you a few times.
You did. Amazon Q.
Yes, I think this is I think this is something that we've talked about quite a bit is, how do you use, when we think about AI and starting to use AI as organizations, because I think a lot of organizations, unless they're tech first companies, unless they're tech companies, right? I think a lot of organizations are still very early on in this journey. And one of the things that we talked a bit about is, okay, well, so we obviously as organizations, as executives, we want to understand how we can use AI to give us a competitive advantage. And I think the first step to that is using it internally. So I think this is massive. And I'm so excited about this, for what it can do for organizations, and particularly in big organizations where you've got lots of information sitting around. I think a lot of time we spend in large organizations, especially organizations that move fast, is where's this information? Where's that information? How do we create a cohesive story for our customers? And this is just such a game changer.
Yeah. I know people were using a lot of. So let's talk about what it is. So basically, it comes in two main flavors, I guess. There's one for devs and tech professionals, and then there's one for business. We'll talk about the business one here today. The other one is very powerful too, but basically being able to pull all your information together in your organisation. Assuming this works as advertised, it's only been out for a few days.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second, Matt. Let's get to that in a second. Let's talk about it first, because I think it is really exciting, and I don't want to jump ahead of that.
The basically every organisation has data in all different silos. So you've got your Office 365, Google Drive,
5 different learning apps.
Exactly. Slack,
case studies, customer feedback.
Confluence,
the
Jira.
amount is just ridiculous. It's just obscene. Reporting, data, financials.
Oh yeah, Excel files.
Projects. Yeah. Oh, just so much data, and it's so difficult to harness it.
Yeah, so hard to find it and also get the insights out of it, and combining all the information together to get the view of what you want. And PDF files, document files, all those sorts of things. So Amazon Q basically has built-in connectors at launch it says over 40 built-in connectors. So pretty much every system that anyone uses, I would suspect, has a connector for Amazon Q. And basically the idea is that it pulls in all that data, puts it through its models or whatever, and then allows you to query the information for particular insights. And it takes in, and so one thing that I wasn't sure about, but it seems to take into account user permissions as well. So if it's ingesting all that data, it still takes into account what the user who's querying the data has permission to see, so it doesn't give them
so it has
the information.
That built-in functionality.
Yeah, so there must be some integration with Azure AD or whatever your identity system is, and it knows where that data came from and who has permission to see it. What would be interesting is if those permissions get updated over time and how that filters through. But yeah, interesting. Have to have a play with that.
Is it just hooked up to IAM?
Yeah. I think so. Yep, and
interesting.
Yep, there'll be some federated authentication to the enterprise AD. So I think this is really a game changer for being able to query data. Previously, I think people built their own using probably OpenAI, ChatGPT, sort of private APIs and stuff up until now. But this looks like it makes the process a lot simpler. But I'm sure Microsoft have got something similar. Well, their Copilot stuff does a lot of similar type things to this as well.
Yes, I think quite a few organisations are rolling that out, which is, I think really exciting. But I think the other part that obviously is really interesting is I don't know, we don't want to talk too much about it, is for development is obviously an important thing as well. I think what is interesting though is, and I've seen a bunch of research on AI for developers. And what I've seen, basically, this is just an interesting point. I'm slightly taking us off track. Sorry.
That's okay. Go for it.
Is that for mature developers, so developers that are experienced, AI is super helpful and it makes them, quite a significant margin more efficient. But for junior developers, it actually makes them more inefficient. So it actually takes away some of their efficiency, which I actually thought was really interesting. But yeah, so. Anyway,
but that would make sense.
Obviously,
that would make sense.
I think it does, right? I think it does.
Because you've still got to have the experience to work out whether what you're being told is useful. Yeah, wisdom of experience, yes.
The wisdom to know the difference between what's right and what's not, to look at it and go, this doesn't look right. Yes, agree. Other thing, obviously we saw a couple of blogs over the latter half of the weekend publish some news about Q and effectively saying that it was hallucinating quite a bit, but it was also leaking confidential data. I know that Amazon has said that that's not true, But yeah, I think obviously always like, you know, and this is in a lot of ways it's a great thing that Amazon goes early to market with things and tests it with customers. It's like, okay, well, is this working? Is this what customers want? They really deliver that like MLP, and then they build on it, right?
Yep.
And I think through that journey, a lot of customers like jump on board. Like there will be a few early adopters, but then as time I think adoption can quite significantly
it'll skyrocket eventually.
Increase. Yes,
Yep.
exactly. Because they put in that like R&I into that process.
Yeah.
R&D, sorry.
R&D.
R&D into that process, which I think is, like obviously there's always going to be kind of teething issues. And I think from what I understand, Azure's similar product has had teething issues as well. I saw some posts on like the Aussie corporate, etc., saying that people were like, it's doing some weird stuff. But I think, that's just part of being an early adopter, is that, and as we always say, validate what it says, because it could like, it's every now and then I've gone back through something that I got AI to write for me, and I've gone, there's some hallucinations in here. Some of this is not true. It's definitely really important to, especially at this point in where we are with the technology, validate the outcomes.
Yep, super important. And of course, this is all underpinned by Bedrock behind the scenes. So Amazon Bedrock, if you didn't know, is the AWS version of, hosted models, and makes hosted foundation models for LLMs to make these sorts of, generative AI systems work very well.
And Matt, so tell me if I'm wrong. From what I understand, Bedrock is like the almost database that hosts the models, right? So it stores the models.
It's the API. Right? Yeah, it's basically the API, which has a whole bunch of 10, 12 different models from different companies. And it's
right. So it hosts third-party models.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay.
And AWS's ones as well. Titan.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah, because I was trying to understand like how Bedrock kind of provides that back end.
Exactly right.
Q.
Yep. Awesome. And that actually is a good segue to the new chips that were announced. Graviton4. So Graviton is their ARM. AWS's self-built ARM processor for the last 5 years now. I think 2019 was the first year that came out. That's for more generic sort of enterprise work, general purpose workloads, let's just say. And then Trainium2 is the one that helps training models and makes things a lot more efficient from a LLM. So
that's really for AI.
Generative AI perspective, yeah. So both of those were released. So
I guess it's part of that like wider capability to enable organizations to use AI effectively.
Yeah. The other point around that is that Microsoft only recently announced that theirs will be out next year. They're self-built processors. And right. Google don't even have theirs in production yet. From the information I could see, they're expecting 2025. So AWS has been doing their own processors for quite a while now, and they're cheaper, more efficient, and pretty useful, especially from a sustainability and cost perspective. The Trainium ones are actually pretty expensive, but so when I say cheap, I mean they're for something that would take a regular Intel processor months. Trainium takes days/weeks to do training. So
wow,
super optimized for training models.
Wow, that's quite a difference.
Yes, indeed. I'm just looking at the time. Maybe we'll jump to...
We've kind of talked about Bedrock, haven't we?
I'll skip Bedrock and I'll do a tiny bit on SageMaker. So SageMaker
I think that's important.
Yeah. So SageMaker is basically Amazon's... SageMaker to me is a little bit complicated because there's a whole bunch of different services within SageMaker, but ultimately it's for data scientists to process data.
It's machine learning.
Train
right?
models, machine learning, and you can it basically helps building, training, and deploying models. So deploying models can be a very difficult process because you have to, if your data changes, you have to retrain it, and then you have to deploy the model. You've got to make sure the right models are in production, and you've got to make sure that the right, you got proper change control, and you know which one's running where and everything. So it basically is a service to help manage that whole process. And it looks like there was a whole bunch of releases around obviously helping training foundation models, which are the basis of LLMs and Gen AI. So they're building up their SageMaker capability to match all the new releases around Bedrock and the foundation models and LLMs and all that sort of stuff. And also another one around enabling easier managed data preparation using Data Wrangler. Love that name. You wrangle your data with Data Wrangler. Which is,
I love that. This is so accurate.
Which is used to as input for training the models, because that whole process, training, prepping the data, training the models, deploying the models, just takes so much time. And of course, now you can actually fine tune the Bedrock hosted models as well now too. That was also one of the releases. So slowly iterative, not great huge announcements, but just iterative announcements that all build on each other to make this whole process easier. SageMaker. Anything else in SageMaker? I think that's kind of it.
Question, Matt. What's the difference between, like, say, for example, employing a large language model via SageMaker as opposed to, like, employing a large language model with, like, Bedrock? Like, what is the difference?
Sage, actually, I'm not 100% sure, but Bedrock.
Okay.
I think SageMaker is more for your traditional ML models, where you're bringing your own model, but it can also deploy a model that's in Bedrock, I believe. That's my understanding. So
Okay, right.
it can help manage that process. So the ones in Bedrock are pretty much fixed as is, but now there's a way to fine tune them, and you can do that with SageMaker. So I think the two services starting to integrate somewhat.
So you can take a model out of Bedrock, like a third-party model, and curate it for your needs.
Yes.
And deploy it on SageMaker?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check. That bit I'm not sure about.
Okay.
I know you can fine tune it.
Sorry, I'm testing the limits of
testing
knowledge at this point.
Exactly. But
interesting.
But now
I actually wasn't aware that you could fine tune models.
That was a new.
Bedrock.
No, that's it. That was new this last week.
Wow. Okay. So I was going to say that. So that's very new. Okay.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Fine tuning, a managed fine tuning process, they call it. But yeah, that's that around SageMaker. And the other thing around, I do want to briefly talk about cost controls, because business leaders like to know about their cloud costs. So there was a lot of releases this year which actually don't get the highlight that they probably should, but AWS's cost dashboards have been kind of not that great over the years, but they're slowly...
Well, they haven't been updated a lot, have they?
No, but I think they've got more updates in the last few weeks than they have for a long time.
Right, in the last few years. No, I think it's like, and I think it's a lot of organizations, I feel, in the last couple of years have started to get this point in that cloud maturity where they've started moving a lot to cloud, or they have moved a lot to cloud, and then they find that their costs are getting out of control, and it's because they're not well architected in the way that helps manage those costs. They don't have the right controls in place. So getting a handle on that is so important. And I always think that, obviously I have a lot of context from AWS, is that they will always do what they can to tell you that you can save money.
Yes, exactly right.
They're not going to try to rip you off. I really don't think it's just not in their culture. So I think that's part of their culture coming out is like, okay, well, let's give everyone the tools to really manage those costs and understand where things are maybe not optimal.
Yeah, the AWS solution architects are usually pretty good at that as well, helping customers.
Absolutely. But they only scale so far, right?
Yeah, that's right.
This is the thing, is that you can only, like, it's one thing for a AWS salesperson to ask their SA to give some tips, but in the end, they can't go and implement that for you. They can't deploy it into your environment. You need to do those things yourself.
Or via a partner.
I think yes, or via a partner. I think partners are becoming super critical in this space, because if they've got the right knowledge, they can help you to keep it under control and know where your money's going and know that you're getting the right value from day one.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple of the updates. You can do more granular filters with your export using a traditional SQL query interface, which is pretty cool. And you can there's multi-year cost retention. It used to not go that long.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
38 months, so you can see the trends.
Yeah.
That's just a bit over 3 years, so you can see your trend for the last 3 years. And also there's a lot of optimization in the dashboard update. There's a lot of optimizations around recommended actions to save money, and there's a lot of, I think there's some Amazon Q happening behind the scenes around this as well to give you options to things that you can do, like upgrading to ARM, Graviton, for example, right sizing up, down, and when savings plans would probably make sense. So that sorts of things. So that's kind of cost controls. And the last thing that I think is a significant announcement is around zero ETL. So ETL is extract, transform, and load. So normally, if your organisation has a whole bunch of data engineers, that's what they do for their day job, building pipelines to take data from transactional databases to analytical databases, and doing that in real time. So batching. People used to do it all batch-wise because real-time was too hard. But over the last few years, real-time has become super important to be able to get this data in other areas and combining them and enriching them with all the other data sources. It's super important to have this real-time view of I don't know, where your widgets are selling from, whatever data you're storing, which one's selling the most, from where, all those sorts of things. Having a real-time way. So what this service does is basically take away all the scripts and the automation that used to be in place to be able to get all this data from a transactional database to an analytical database to manage that whole process for you. So you just have to click a few buttons, join the databases up, and your data will end up in Redshift or wherever it needs to go. So as a data warehouse. So being able to do real-time ETL is a big deal, and if this works, as advertised, then it will save a lot of time, and data engineers can do a lot of other more interesting things rather than writing scripts or fixing pipelines that are broken because the data transfer didn't work, or finding out, it hasn't worked for 5 days. Now they've got to work out how far back they've got to, restart from. So.
This sounds so familiar.
This makes your data organisation a lot more efficient, and you should get your teams to look at this stuff. Some of it's in preview, some of it's GA, but and slowly, they don't have all databases supported yet, but they're working on all the Amazon managed ones to start with. So that's RDS and Aurora. Yeah. Awesome. So I think that's our summary of reInvent.
Yay!
for executives and business leaders, and we'll put some links in the show notes where to go get more information. Any final thoughts?
Just to say thank you to our listeners for the year that has been. Obviously, we started this a few months back now, and I really appreciate the emails and messages about like coming on as a guest, and we love that, and we'll take you up where we think there's an opportunity. Obviously, again, love to hear about what you want to hear about next year, aside from FinOps, which is definitely coming.
That's right. Very soon.
Yes. But yeah, obviously we love feedback, so please send us an email. Leave us a comment on YouTube, whatever.
Yep.
Give
Subscribe.
us a rating on Spotify or Apple or whatever channel you're listening to this through. But yeah, just thank you everybody for all the engagement and for listening, and I hope it's been useful.
And
we definitely try.
And it's been fun, and we're learning a lot as we go. Not just doing the show, but the post-production and all that sort of stuff is interesting as well. So
totally.
Yes. Cool. All right. Till next time.
Till 2024. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas or whatever you celebrate, and safe and happy holidays. And we will see you
early Jan.
Energized in the new year.
All right. Have a good break, Georgia.
Bye.
See ya.
You too. Bye.
Bye.